Welcome, guys. Let's answer some Qi Gong question. All right, question 1 from episode 67 is from DJ. Hi, DJ. Sifu Adam, at the end of the video, you talked about feeling stuff in the moment of practice. When I practice post-training, I sometimes experience this, but it usually doesn't last long. During the entire practice session, it comes and goes. Sometimes in my hands, sometimes in my legs, sometimes not at all. In your experience, is the inability to hold on to the feeling stuff during the entire time standing normal? Do you find that it is more of a posture alignment issue or a mind intention issue that prevents holding on to the feelings for longer? Also, is it better to chase those feelings during practice or just to let it happen naturally? All right, that's a good question. We can approach it from a different angle, many different angles, but the sensation of holding on to it longer, rather that's a good thing. We can talk about it later. But from now, the sensation themselves, it really depends on a sensation that you're talking about. Rather, it's better to use your intention, your body, or breath work. It also depends on the benefits that you're going after. So there's many ways we can look at this. For example, let's say you're post-training, right? And the universal ball pose is pretty familiar for most people. And you want to be able to hold on to the feeling that sometimes when you're standing, you start feeling there's actually some kind of stuff there. Like it's a ball of energy, you can call it that. And go, and the feeling comes, and then the feeling goes. And you're asking, how do I hold on to that feeling longer? If you're holding on to a paper ball, right? And the whole point of that in the beginning is just to get your arm, just like your spine and your legs, to form the right structure and relax in the same time. When you form the right structure, my hand should be here, it should not be there, my elbow should be here, it should not be here, that kind of stuff. In the same time, you're trying to control all the muscles in your body. The brain cannot track that many variables at once, but a picture speaks 1,000 words. That's why we use an imagery. Like, imagine you're holding on to the ball, but the ball is made of paper. So if you use too much force, it breaks. If you don't use enough force, it drops to the ground. That's the reason why we use imageries. And a lot of people doesn't know that. They think there's some magic in the imagery, but it isn't. Not in the beginning anyways. You're just using an imagery to try to get you to use the exact right amount of muscle to hold a posture and no more so you can relax, as well as maintaining the correct structure. As you're doing that, if you just do that, one of the things that will happen, like you said, is you start feeling stuff. So maybe you're holding on to the ball, you're hanging the string, you're settling into the ground, and the main reason most people post-train is for health purposes to gather more energy. As you're doing that, you get different sensation. One of it that's common for most people is in the hands and around this area, they'll feel like they're holding on to some kind of energy ball. Sometimes it's pulsing, right? When that comes, people get really excited. And when they get really excited, a common question is what you ask, and that is, how do I hold on to that feeling because it comes and goes? But one of the things you can do is a simple thing. Next time you post-train when you're holding the ball, once you can feel the ball, every time you breathe in, fill it up. Imagine you're filling up the ball. But do not do it with force. Some people will pass out because they're trying so hard, right? Instead, do it with the attitude of curiosity, playfulness, and gratitude, which is the main reason why in a lot of meditation traditions, they will bow to a shrine and do a lot of rituals before they actually do Qigong and meditate. And a lot of people think that's superstition, but it's not. It's to get you in the right frame of mind. So you're operating from curiosity, peace, and gratitude instead of this power-hungry mode, which can cause you to pass out if you're breathing really hard into the ball, right? So once you get yourself in a relaxed, grateful, playful, curious, not power-hungry state, then if you just simply breathe into the ball as though you're filling it up every time you breathe in, you would notice you need no effort to hold on to the stuff or the sensation. It just maintains until you want to give up doing it. So that's one example. And there's many examples like spinal cord breathing, bone breathing, pore breathing, how to get your dantian to heat up really fast. There's all sorts of tricks that I can tell you, right? But it depends on the benefit that you're going for. Just being able to turn on all these sensations doesn't really help you, right? That's why I'm stopping with just one trick today and not giving you 20. What's important is the benefit and what you're trying to get out of it. Like, I just finished teaching an online Qigong class like 10 minutes ago when we just went over this. For example, like rooting into the ground. A lot of people say, I want a bit of root into the ground, or I want a bit of feel the ball, or I want a bit of bone breathe. But it's important to know what you're doing it for. Like, say if you caught a cold, right? And it's a type of cold where your sweat's very clammy, and your head's heating up, and you feel like your head's this big, you're getting brain fog, and your body feels really tiny. That kind of cold is your chi being stuck up. So if you practice descending, if you practice earth type of Qigong technique, that would release all the heat. It'll make you recover from your cold a lot faster. It works really good. But if you have the opposite type of cold, where you're getting cold chills, you feel really weak in the head, like you have low blood pressure kind of thing, your body starts to feel like seaweed, you can't stop shaking, your bones feel like it's rattling, that type of flu or cold, if you do more earth work, for most people, you'll pass out even faster. So that's an example, because under that condition, bone breathing and pore breathing, as well as merging upward type of work, if you know how to recycle it back down, I won't get into that today, would cure that type of cold. So that's why I hesitate to give people tricks on, hey, if you want to learn how to do spinal breathing, do it like this. If you want to learn how to feel the ball with the sensation, do it like that. I don't like to indiscriminately give out the wrong medicine or the wrong trick, because they're not good for everything. If you just taught someone how to root and they have yen type of flu or cold, you can actually hurt them more. That's the problem with trying to hold on to sensations or learning tricks, right? And I want to warn you about that, because as your skill get better, and I've been watching you making comments and asking me questions for months now, so it tells me you're pretty serious about your practice, which I want to congratulate you, because that in itself is really rare in the modern world. So good job, man. So if you're actually going to practice regularly, and it seems like you are, you're going to be one of those rare people that would get real benefits and real power out of this. When power comes, if you don't know what each method is for, you can actually hurt yourself. Like if you practice, just a brief example I give you, if you have a yin type of cold or flu, and you practice earth type of practice, is good for you. But if you practice fire type of method, it can actually make the illness worse. On the other hand, if you have a yang type of cold, if you have I got it backwards. If you got a yang type of cold and you practice earth, is good. But if you practice fire, it will make it worse. But if you have a yin type of cold and you go and practice more earth practice, 9 times out of 10, you'll mess you up more. So as your power increases, don't just indiscriminately collect tricks. And a lot of people do that, right? They just try to learn from YouTube or learn from books or learn from forums. That's fine, but if you're a guy like you, where you actually have some power, that type of learning method can actually hurt you, because now you're just gathering tricks and you don't know what they're for, or people are just typing in what they're for. I would urge you to find a good teacher, online school, or you go to your community center, or go down to Chinatown, or look around town. Find a good teacher that you like, that resonate with you, a method that works well for you after you try it. That way, you get customized, individualized instruction, and you know exactly what you're doing, when you do it, why you do it, what it is for. That's a teacher's job, to customize and individualize all Qigong techniques for you and your unique mind and body, so you never hurt yourself. So I hope I answered your first question. As for your second question, is it better to chase those feelings or just to let it happen naturally? Well, I think physically or energetically, I kind of indirectly already answered your question. If you don't know what something is for, but you like the sensation, and you keep on chasing that sensation, it could actually hurt you, because it could be the wrong practice for the wrong problem, right? So no, I don't really think you just chase sensation. I think it's better to understand why it is happening, how to manifest it, how to turn it off, what it is for, what kind of method enhance it, what kind of method cut it off. Those are the things that, like I said, I just taught a class 10 minutes ago. Those are some of the things that we're talking about. Because when I teach a Qigong technique afterwards, we always have a Q&A period. We also have a supportive student forum where they can private message me 24 hours a day. And my job is to customize the techniques very specific for them so they accelerate. And because the bottom line is to feel better, right? And we have students that cure their stomach problems, anxiety, depression. One guy is he's walking again, right? Yeah, it's overwhelming. Anyways, but I can't emphasize that enough. Don't just gather tricks. I'm sure you can find a good teacher in your city or a city close to you. Go for it, you know? That way you're not just hung up on sensation. And then from a spiritual point of view or psychological point of view first, this idea of chasing sensation and try to hold on to it is actually against Taoism and Buddhism. Because when you chase something, a sensation, a power, just look around you 24 hours a day. According to the Buddha, that's the major cause of suffering. The first noble truth in Buddhism is life is suffering, but more precisely the translation is dissatisfaction. It cannot be satisfied. And the reason for dissatisfaction or suffering is because this craving, grasping, desire, attachment, because there's no real English translation, so all these adjectives he was using. And that's what people do. 24 hours a day in the rat race, they're chasing this or chasing that, you know, because their source of happiness comes from external factor, like people, place, or thing. Either chasing women or chasing money or chasing gadgets, or it's nonstop. And the phone trained us to do that. It's constant gratification. Chasing dopamine hits basically is what you're doing, right? What goes up must come down, is impermanent, it doesn't last. And if you examine how pleasure works, whether it's food, rather it's people, place, or thing, rather it's buying a new car or whatever, what have you, going to a sports event, is always a dopamine spike followed by a down. So this idea of constant chasing sensation is a circle that doesn't end, that produces suffering. Where there's an up, there's always a down. The opposite of that is something that doesn't go up and down, but is level. And that's contentment, that's bliss. That's based on serotonin and based on endorphins. It's the opposite of like up and down, but it's more like a peaceful, blissful, really joyful state. And that's what we get from Qigong. And that's what we get from love. That's what we get from spending time in nature. That's what we get from gratitude. That's what we call peace. That's what we call bliss. So there's a different side of the brain. A different chemical in the brain, right? So when we practice Qigong and we get hung up on sensation with greed and power, and we start chasing to try to keep the sensation, and then being dissatisfied with it after we get it, and then we try to chase the next sensation, and then we feel anxious, and we don't feel good enough, and we feel stressed out, and we have to force away until we get that next sensation. And once we get it, we're happy for a little bit. Then we're not satisfied and we're bored with that. Then we change the next. The pattern repeats itself. Now your meditation or Qigong or spiritual journey, what have you, just becomes a way for you to reinforce the cause of suffering, according to the Buddha. Even though this is a Taoist podcast, I'm quoting the Buddha because the Buddha did a much better job than the Taoist explaining this, because the Taoist likes to write in poetry that you have to decipher. And instead of me getting out a Chinese book and reading you a bunch of poetry, it's better to quote Buddhism because he says it in black and white. So in Qigong, we're trying to cure that psychological loop. That's depending on dopamine. Instead, we're trying to go to endorphins and serotonin. To say it in a more spiritual sense, instead of counting on greed and power and pleasure and seduction and addiction, we're trying to switch your brain into peace, love, and bliss. So when we practice Qigong, when a sensation comes, your Taoist quote was right, that we should just let it come and go. But if you do the first thing of what I said in the podcast, of knowing why you're doing something, how to do it, what it is for, how to enhance it, and how to turn it off, and this can only happen with a teacher that can individualize stuff for you, then there'll be no more question about holding on to a sensation. Because one, you don't care about it. Two, if you want it, you know how to turn it on, you know how to turn it off, you know what it is for. So then your Qigong practice take a complete different turn. But I'll stop here because I want to give you a chance to contemplate on it, share what you believe in, and we can continue this conversation instead of me just boring you and keep on yapping. Anyways, that's it for today. For those that are interested in joining our Taoist Qi Gong community, we train once a week together. We have a student forum. Everything is individualized. All the classes in the student library. And just go follow the links below because I'm probably forgetting a bunch of stuff. All right, guys. Have a good day. See you next time.